Thank you very much, everyone, for joining me this afternoon. I'm Mark Levine. I'm the Assembly member for Marin and Sonoma County. It's a pleasure to serve this community. Today is a new platform that we're using where we're able to share a visual for the teletown halls that we've been doing since the COVID-19 stay-at-home order. We've been doing them by phone. Now it's being broadcast on Facebook Live as well. And so welcome to new people who hadn't been part of this by phone and that are participating now visually. And thanks for joining us. Before we begin, I want to share some information about today's town hall, where we're talking about food access and food security. We have a number of guests. They'll have websites that they can share with you, and we will also be sharing that via a resources email that we do after all of our town halls. All of the resources from the town halls we've done on mental health, on seniors, as well as education and distance learning, have also been posted to my Assembly website. And so we can make sure that you get that information if you've missed it while you're paying attention to this. We've got some pretty amazing panelists to join us to talk about these topics. We've got Andy Najjar-Reese from the Agricultural Institute of Marin, Meg Davidson of the San Francisco Marin Food Bank, and David Goodman from the Redwood Empire Food Bank. I hope you'll find today's discussion informative and helpful, and point us all in ways to get resources we need for food, to become educated about some of the challenges we've had, and also to find out how we can help during this time. It reminds me back to March 16th. That is when the Bay Area began our stay-at-home order. It is also when the legislature passed a $1 billion aid package to help in this time of need for the COVID-19 crisis. The weeks have certainly flown by for many of us, and they've been harder for some of us as well. But we've been able to push out resources where we've needed to, make sure funding for our schools is where it needs to be as well, to make sure that we're able to support our students and our teachers during this time. There's also been a lot of information. So not only can you go to my website, but also the state's website on the COVID-19 crisis, which is covid19.ca.gov. When the Bay Area had its shelter-in-place announcement, March 16th was for Marin, the 17th for Sonoma County, a number of other counties that week as well. It was quite a shock. And we saw in the days leading to the announcement, and certainly afterward, that many of our community members, all of us, in fact, when we started going to the grocery store, we realized that things were a little bit different. Maybe people hadn't started wearing masks already. Maybe we weren't in line 6 feet away from each other, but certain things we noticed were gone very quickly from the shelves. Everything from toilet paper to flour, even garlic bulbs, I've heard were hard to find in some places as people learned to cook again and bake and needed to stock up for things while they were at home. So this will be an opportunity to talk a little bit about how we get our food, the supply chain, and resources for people who are having a harder time getting food as well. Before we dive a little deeper into the conversation, I'd like to remind people listening that you can submit questions live to us by email at assemblymember.levine@assembly.ca.gov. You can also leave comments on Facebook and Twitter, where you can find me at ASM Mark Levine. Now I'd like to welcome Andy Najjar-Reese, CEO of the Agricultural Institute of Marin, Meg Davidson, the Director of Policy and Advocacy at the San Francisco Marin Food Bank, and David Goodman, CEO of the Redwood Empire Food Bank. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I know you guys have been working extraordinarily hard on some very challenging issues at a time of need for so many, and at a time where just doing our work has changed so much. We can't just show up to work and do our job. We have to be extraordinarily thoughtful about how we do our job and how we serve people. So, Meg, can you start us off by talking briefly about the San Francisco Marin Food Bank and what you've done to accommodate this unprecedented need for food?
Sure. And I thank you so much, Assemblymember Levine, for hosting the space and helping us spread the word about what food resources are available during COVID-19 and how folks can access them. So at the food bank, we've seen an extraordinary jump in folks who need assistance, and we anticipate that that need is just going to grow exponentially as the unemployment numbers continue to rise. So to give you a sense of what that extraordinary need looks like, I'll just share some quick numbers from traffic to the Find Food page on our website, which is where folks go to find out where food pantries are or how to access HealthFresh benefits. In February, before the pandemic, the site had 900 unique visitors. And in April, we had 25,000 unique visitors. So this week, we estimate we're going to serve about 60,000 households, which is 28,000 more than we were doing before the pandemic. So we're close to doubling our distribution. And so we've been racing to open emergency pop-up pantries in both San Francisco and Marin counties. And by the end of this week, we will have launched our 23rd pantry, pop-up pantry. And we're hoping to open at least 5 more to make sure that everybody has access to food during this crisis.
Thank you, David. The Redwood Empire Food Bank extends all the way from Sonoma up the North Coast. That's got to be a logistical challenge for a lot of people and for your supply chain. Can you tell me about how you're making your work happen?
Sure. Well, the Redwood Empire Food Bank, we serve Sonoma, Lake Mendocino, Humboldt, and Del Norte, 320 miles away. So even during the best of times, it is very challenging to reach the furthest parts of our territory. But the bulk of the population that we serve, the bulk of the people are here in Sonoma County. And much like Meg had said, the numbers are sort of staggering. We distributed prior to COVID-19 about 69,000 food for about 69,000 meals a month. And right now we're doing it about 109,000 meals a month. So it's just staggering, and we are a little bit unique from other food banks in the Bay Area and around the country in that we do a tremendous amount of direct service. So although we work with nonprofit and faith-based partners, about 70% of the food that we distribute, we take out directly through our own programs. And so we are pretty well established. We don't have pop-up pantries, but we have a program that we activate called Station 3990, which is where we establish these outposts. But we also just grow our existing distributions during crises. And we've had many now. We've had the Kincaid fire, the Sonoma Complex fire, the federal shutdown, the power shutdown, the Camp fire up north in Butte County, and the list goes on. So we're pretty well experienced when the disaster hits, but this one's bigger than all of them, that's to be sure.
Certainly there's a lot to learn from past disasters, and this one is something that's affecting so many people in a unique and extraordinary way. I'm glad that you guys are continuing to meet this need. Andy, you serve farmers markets across the Bay Area, but many of us are familiar with the Sunday Civic Center Farmers Market at the Civic Center in San Rafael, which is an extraordinarily social place. And on any given Sunday, it could feel like quite a party with music, children. I remember taking my children to ride horses up above the farmers market. It's a very social affair. Things have changed since then. How have you adjusted?
As an operator of 8 farmers markets across the Bay Area, we have 2 in Marin County, 3 in Alameda County, and 2 in San Francisco County, and then we're starting our downtown San Rafael market in June. We really take the responsibility of social distancing and safety very seriously. When the shelter-in-place order first went into effect, we worked proactively with our local health departments, with the State Department of Food and Agriculture, and all the way to the governor's office to keep farmers markets open as essential businesses. And this is critical because farmers markets provide a lifeline for our farmers, ranchers, fishers, and food makers. And since COVID-19 went into effect, we've been able to ensure that over 183 farmers and producers can continue to have a platform to sell directly to the public. What that's meant is pivoting our operations. So gone are the days where you can show up to the farmer's market and rummage through all of the vegetables before making your purchase. Instead, now what we do is every booth, there's a rope placed to prevent anyone from touching any product prior to purchase. So there's no self-service allowed. You point to or tell the farmer what product you would like and they bag it for you. We've doubled or tripled all of our aisles to create a wider walking path for people to safely navigate the market and achieve the 6-foot social distancing. We've also required people to wait in lines at 6-foot intervals until it's their turn to shop. We've eliminated music, kids' activities, so there's no pony rides anymore. There's no jump houses. There's no on-site dining. All food is served to go, and we can only offer essential produce and related products. So there's no arts and crafts allowed for sale. So the model is focused on allowing people to come and shop outdoors, shop quickly, buy food directly from producers, and then go home.
Thank you. We've opened this up for questions, and we've received quite a number of responses from people with disabilities. And there's quite a range of questions about, of course, people are feeling very isolated. They'd love to take advantage of, avail themselves of the opportunities and resources that you have, and in different ways. So one person who had asked a question had asked about, they're blind and social distancing is really challenging for them, or physically distancing is challenging for them. They often need to touch to help themselves decide what they're purchasing. And that's one range of challenges. Of course, there are a whole other range of challenges for people with different abilities. And I'm sure that each of you has a perspective on this. And David, if you don't mind starting to kick off how you're adjusting to make sure that community is met at the different places where they're at.
Well, I don't mean to be glib in any way whatsoever, but the good news for that question is that nobody's touching anything right now. So everybody is receiving, at this point, boxed food or bagged food without any sort of what we would call client choice model. And in terms of people who are sheltered in place, some food banks around the state are actively engaging in home delivery. However, that's incredibly costly, and the dismantling of that, from our point of view, is going to be equally traumatic for people. So we lean on a proxy system where almost everybody knows somebody. People know an apartment manager, a friend, a relative, a colleague, a neighbor. And when people are in need of food assistance, but they are unable to make it out in the normal way in which they did pre-COVID-19, we ask them if they know somebody, and then all the help in the world is available relative to food.
Meg?
Yeah, similarly, as David mentioned, our food bank is one of the ones who is conducting home delivery for people with disabilities and seniors. And it's actually a program that we had in existence prior to COVID-19. And we're able to just expand on that program that we already have for home delivery. We're referring to it as pantry at home at this point. And so it's folks who had been coming to one of our regular pantries and who are now sheltering in place because of their disability or because of their age and their fear of contracting the virus. So we are receiving referrals from our community partners like Whistle Stop and the Health and Human Services Agency and other community partners. And right now we're making about 250 deliveries. And we have a little bit more capacity to add some folks to the program. We're going to be consistently reassessing capacity and understanding that there are, as David mentioned, it is costly and it's labor intensive, but we also don't want to leave anyone behind.
Andy, do you have anything to add?
Our farmers markets operate in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, so we ensure that the model that we create, the temporary facilities that we have, are conducive to people of all abilities. And many people with different backgrounds and abilities are able to shop the market. As said before, we have some that come with proxies or others that help to navigate the market for them. Many of our producers also operate their own forms of, they might have an online store or a way where someone can order a box of produce for home delivery. And on our website, we've created a list of those farmers and producers that you can order directly from and have a box of food delivered to your home.
And we mentioned earlier in the town hall about resources that ran out very quickly at stores. and I imagine that may have affected all of you to some extent. What are some non-produce or food items, particularly at the food banks, that people are getting to make sure that they have those products? Or is it specific to food? Meg, you want to jump in?
We don't offer non-food items
Okay.
At our food bank. We specifically just offer fresh groceries. We definitely have had a lot of questions about our supply chain, as you can imagine. There's been a lot of national press about it. And we have luckily thus far been able to maintain, for the most part, our regular supply chain relationships, so that our distributions look very similar to what they were pre-COVID, which includes an abundance of fresh fruits and vegetables. We have fantastic relationships with farmers statewide. Always have a protein item, eggs, frozen chicken, frozen pork. We have definitely seen some price increases in some of these items. And we always have a grain, either rice or oats, and usually a canned item. And sometimes we get other additional items like milk, spices, other shelf-stable items. We're definitely trying to provide more shelf-stable items as they become available to us, understanding that folks might need to quarantine at some point and may need to have additional resources on hand.
Mark, that's a very complex question. That is sort of like food banking in one question. It's like, how do you do what you do? So we do some non-food. We were just approved as a diaper bank in the National Diaper Bank Network, and before COVID-19, we were months away from being approved through the state to jumpstart the diaper bank. And I don't know where that funding opportunity has gone, but we're excited to get that going. And then the food is much like Meg said. We barter, steal, trade, purchase, do food drives. We do whatever we can do to get an abundance of food in here. And like San Francisco Marin Food Bank, SF Marin, we pull produce from everywhere, from Texas to Arizona, throughout the state of California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho. We're pulling fresh produce from all over to feed our hungry citizens. And the provision of help that we call it is very much the same. I should say, though, that the shelves that you see in the store that are bare, our sources are the same. So we just placed an order for $1.3 million just this month. 1.5 million is our annual purchase, and we placed 1.3 million just last month. Wow. So, we're all betting to make sure that we have food in the pipeline, that federal commodities, the trade war with China has resulted in trade mitigation food and abundance of food in the system. And I think we're all being very aggressive to capture as much of that as possible.
Great. Andy, do you have anything to add?
I would say from my perspective, as restaurants and cafeterias have closed or been disrupted during the shelter in place, we're seeing consumers, eaters, and shoppers that are really creating a new connection or reaffirming their love for regional food and buying wholesome, nutritious food. We believe that we can flatten the curve based on what we eat. We can eat healthy food to boost our immune systems. What we're seeing right now is that the demand for buying food directly from the producer is increasing as larger supply chains. As if you watch in the news, you'll see that large-scale meat processors are being shut down, or there's delays with online deliveries and so forth. People are coming to the farmers market for on-demand food and buying direct from the producers that they know and trust. And there's nothing more authentic than buying from the people that have produced the food. We're also seeing that specific types of products. So for instance, eggs, there's a very high demand for eggs right now, and the hens aren't laying enough eggs to keep up with the demand. But and the same thing with milk. We're seeing that more and more people are buying milk, and we're not having in California the same things we're seeing on the East Coast, where you see dairy farmers dumping out milk. That's not happening out here. And I think that's because of a lot of the partnerships between our producers and food banks to make sure that no food goes to waste and everyone can be well nourished.
The economic impacts of this crisis are growing and going to likely continue for a long time to come. It's a very frightening thing to think about on a very personal level. I think for you, as you're doing your planning for the people who are experiencing such need, for, you know, there's hardly anything as important as food right now. And so one of the things that we're seeing at the state level are people signing up for aid. So whether it's unemployment or CalFresh, that they're able to use those, that CalFresh as a tool at places like farmers markets to get fresh nutritional food. Are you seeing an uptake of that being used at the farmers markets across the Bay Area?
Definitely. We've seen people of all income levels coming to the farmers market for the open air outdoor experience. Since COVID-19 started, we've redeemed about almost $20,000 in CalFresh, or formerly called food stamp redemptions. We also provide what's called a market match. So for every $10 that someone spends at the farmers market using their CalFresh card, we give them a matching $10. And that goes towards free fruits and vegetables for them to purchase directly from farmers. So that helps to feed hungry families and helps to also increase revenue for our local and regional farmers that are at the market. So CalFresh is a critically important program within our regional food system.
Yeah, I could definitely echo that, especially from our perspective. We have teams in San Francisco and Marin County that do direct application assistance for CalFresh. And just as a little bit of information about CalFresh, just to have everybody on a level playing field if folks are not familiar. It's the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It's known as SNAP at the federal level, but we call it CalFresh here in California, and it used to be called food stamps. A lot of people are not familiar with all of the names that we call it. So it's just a monthly benefit for food. You get it on an EBT card. It's just like a debit card. You can use it at grocery stores. There's a couple of things that we have we've noticed in the last couple of months, and because of some changes to the program that have made it far more accessible to people, we've definitely seen a huge uptick in interest in the program. Our CalFresh hotline has seen a 10-fold increase in calls, and it's been really great to be able to help folks through this time. We've been excited to actually be able to share that people can get the maximum amount, the maximum benefit allocation. So that means usually before you could be getting a small amount as $15 per month, depending on your household expenses. But because of one of the federal stimulus bills, there is an emergency allotment, which is being granted to every household on CalFresh. So you get bumped up to the maximum amount. So for a one-person household, that'd be $194 a month, which is a huge jump from $15 a month. Another exciting thing that's happening in the CalFresh world is that people have been able to start purchasing food online. There's a pilot happening in the state of California now. They've fast-tracked it so that we could have folks start being able to purchase food online using their EBT card. It started on April 28th. And there's definitely some challenges at this point in food delivery. And we're doing a ton of advocacy of trying to address those challenges, but it is a really great first step to be able to have that option for people to purchase food online using their EBT benefits.
Meg, I believe there's also, isn't there a new element where children who qualify for free or reduced price meals in school, are you aware of that moving through?
Yeah, that's called Pandemic EBT, or PEBT. And EBT stands for Electronic Benefit Transfer. This is alphabet soup, and I apologize. But if you have a student who receives free or reduced price meals at school, but they're now had to be home because the schools are closed, you will receive in the mail a separate card. It's gonna just look like a regular debit card, and you can get up to $365 per child in benefits you can use at the grocery store, same as a regular EBT card. And the total amount that you get just depends on how many eligible children are living in your home. And the great thing about PEBT is if you already receive CalFresh benefits, if you receive Medi-Cal, or if you have foster youth in the home, you don't have to apply at all. They're just going to send it to you in the mail, which is fantastic. And if you don't apply, if you don't have any of those other benefits, you will be able to apply. It's a quick 5-minute application that will be online, and you will get the card. I believe they're starting in the next couple of weeks.
And you'll also be able to use the pandemic EBT benefits at the farmers markets as well. and receive the $10 market match.
That's fantastic. What a great way to extend those benefits and also help the farmers. We've gotten some questions about allergies, and how can someone who is receiving food from the food bank communicate their specific dietary needs. Allergies could be one of them, but also if they have a more specific dietary impact on their life. Is there something that they can do to tailor what they're doing so they don't get something they wouldn't want to use or need to use to make sure that there's more for someone else? Or it's pretty much you get one size fits all, and if it doesn't work for you, that's okay. There's other things that you'll be eating.
I can start. As David mentioned earlier, right now, because typically all of our distributions are farmers market style, so folks get to tailor their pantry distribution to themselves. Right now, because of our fear of or just wanting to ensure social distancing and that the food is safe, we are pre-bagging and pre-boxing things. So typically, we try really hard to accommodate people's dietary restrictions and their needs. It is far more challenging now because of the changes we've had to make to our programming. I'm not sure, David, if you guys have had come up with any new system to help accommodate changes. It's definitely on our mind, but it's been very hard to try to figure out something that keeps the food safe.
Well, the good news, I think, is that for most food banks around the Bay Area, nearly half or a little more than half of our food is fresh produce, and there aren't too many people that have allergies around produce, I don't believe, but Andy can correct that. We have a specific program that's for diabetes, but the good news is that even when it's not a client choice farmers market style where they can pick out the food, they can always donate it back. And there's nothing more gratifying than when people get food that they don't prefer or they can't benefit from, food from which they can't benefit, and they just donate it back. And there's always somebody else who's more than happy to receive it.
Yeah, there was, I volunteered at both of your food banks at different times, and I mentioned the social component of the farmers market. There really is something sweet about that personal connection that you're able to make with people as they're coming up when you were able to make a choice as to what someone wanted to take home with them, and make that connection. And are there ways that you're able to continue building on those relationships, even though you have to do it in a different way at the food bank?
It is, we are all starting to recognize each other with masks on, and we don't when they're not wearing them. So it's the new normal. It's a little challenging, but I think people are grateful to receive food, and we are glad that they've arrived. And there's a nice bond with that.
I can share a nice story from our Marin drive-through. We at our Kerner facility on Saturdays, we do a drive-through food pantry. And there's been a young woman who's been coming every week. And every week she has brought with her a small canvas painting that she has made to express her gratitude for all the volunteers for being out there. And it's something now that folks on site are really look forward to seeing her art. We are having to get creative, and I guess to your point about the mask, like really learn how to smile with our eyes and just let people know that that we are. It's been an incredible time to have so many people show up who are just willing to go the extra mile for their community.
Andy, the farmers markets, at your farmers markets, you've also created a pre-ordered box option for people. And that completely changes the farmers market experience as well. What's been that transition like?
In early April, we launched a new program called the Bounty Box. It's a pre-order curbside farm box that's available at our Thursday Marin Market, our Saturday Grand Lake Oakland Market, and our Sunday Clement Street San Francisco Market. And we did this program for two reasons. First, we recognized we had a number of older adults and people who were high risk that stopped coming to the farmers market during the shelter in place, and they were looking for an outlet to buy directly from farmers. The second piece is that we had farmers that lost about 90 to 100% of their restaurant accounts. And these were funds that they were planning for, and they had their planting schedule set and they're ready to harvest and they're looking for opportunities to sell those products. So to help support these farmers to move their products and also to help more people get access to fresh produce, we set up this program. And the way it works, you can visit our website, agriculturalinstitute.org. You can pre-order a box of produce. It costs $25. It's fresh, local, seasonal produce. It changes every week. And it's enough produce for 1 to 2 people. You can order 2 boxes to feed a whole family. And thanks to the generosity of Bank of America, we're able to offer the box 50% off. So it's only $12.50 for someone who's using their CalFresh. So it's been, the program has taken off. We're now doing over 400 boxes a week, and we expect it will continue to grow just as the demand for getting food using a curbside contactless pickup model. You place your order, drive up, and you pop your trunk open, and we pop the produce in your trunk and you drive off. So it's a nice way for people to experience the farmers market when they might not physically be able to step inside.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about supply chain and challenges, and we've seen it up close at the grocery store. Have you heard from your farmers about how their ability to, with farm labor and the safety for them to do their job, and how that's impacted their ability to harvest their crops and get it to you and to other places, whether those have been challenging issues?
I mean, there's always been labor challenges across the agricultural sector for a number of different reasons. But I think that when it comes to supporting many of the producers that are part of our markets, these are some of the most progressive producers that we work with. We have producers that are providing fair and living wages. We have producers providing health insurance. We have producers providing protective equipment to their employees and really taking care of their employees in a meaningful way. That's something when you're supporting our local and regional producers that are maybe using organic practices or helping to steward the land in an appropriate way. And they're really adopting many meaningful practices to help support the welfare of their employees and others in their community. So, but it's always a concern, and there's definitely challenges with labor, especially if workers or farmers themselves are getting sick. The concern is, how will they continue to farm? How will their business continue to survive? And that's a challenge for all business owners nowadays, as well as protecting your employees, as well as ensuring you can continue to succeed.
David, you had mentioned a very large order that you had placed and some of the costs and prices and how they have changed in the near term. We've heard a little bit more about the bigger processors of food and meat processors of food more in the Midwest than we have locally. Has there been an impact as far as time to get to you, or just cost for the food banks? That is an important story to tell.
Well, certainly food prices are up, and the lag time between placing your order and receiving it is also up. But all good food banks gather food, and we squirrel away food as much as possible with every opportunity. And so I mentioned earlier that with the trade mitigation food, because of the trade war that's going on, we've been super bold, and we have offsite storage around the Bay Area where we have taken as much product as possible. So we have not experienced a shortfall of any kind of provision of help as of yet. But, timing is critical. And, every week we evaluate sort of the duration of the food that we have in inventory and what it's going to take to be able to stretch it. Because the last thing we want to do is have more people in need, but less food available. That's not a good equation as a hungry relief worker. So we're angling always to make sure that the availability of food grows with the need for food.
Definitely a similar situation at San Francisco Marin. We also benefited from the trade mitigation food, and recently we secured a secondary offsite storage location for some additional food that we hope to see coming down the pipeline from the federal government. So, yeah, we were there was like putting stuff in the closet. We were stacking stuff on top of stuff. We really needed some more space because we, as David said, to the idea of having these lines as long as they are and not having the food to feed folks is unthinkable as a food banker. So we're definitely trying to take advantage of as many opportunities as we can to ensure that we have the food that we need to keep people fed.
So we talked a little bit about how times are hard for people, economically challenging, and CalFresh is stepping up to making more resources available more quickly to people in need. One of our family members could be a pet. What are some resources that are out there for our pets if things are a little rough? No pun intended. Thanks for that. So is there anything out there? There was a live question we got on Facebook that I thought was important to ask as someone who loves their cat.
Meg, I'm going to pitch this one to you.
No, I was going to do the same. We occasionally get donations of pet food, but we don't solicit them, and we don't really traffic in food for animals.
Mm-hmm.
We typically hope that we're giving you enough food so that you don't have to buy it, and then you might have a little bit left in your pocket to purchase the food for your animal, or maybe you could just make a nice hash out of some of the vegetables that we give you, and your dog will eat that. We don't unfortunately have those resources to focus on animals as well.
Okay.
Mark, I think and one of the issues we face is that all of us are short on storage space, and in the sort of priority of needs, we all focus on feeding the people. Pet donations come in from time to time, and then we make those available, but it's definitely not something that we pay to transport or pay to store.
It's knowing our community, our pets are our family members for sure. And we will look out for some resources. We'll do some research, and we will post that on our website with all of the resources we have from this town hall. If we are able to find some, so that question is really appreciated. What are there certain experiences that people should know, or ways to help out and pitch in that people should know that we haven't had a chance to tie in yet? Meg, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, our operation is heavily reliant on volunteers. We have been so grateful for so many people stepping up during this time and coming to join us and helping us run our pop-up pantries and helping us pre-pack our boxes in our parking lot under a tent, and helping us manage the lines that are snaking around the block. So we absolutely need volunteers, and we are planning in the next couple of weeks to open up the calendar for volunteer opportunities in our warehouse at our Kerner facility. And we're also looking for folks to help us with the program I mentioned earlier, the Pantry at Home program, to do contactless home deliveries for folks who can't come out to the pantries. And we'll be opening some shifts for volunteers to help us out in the middle of the week to help us glean produce. As David and I were talking about earlier, we do still have an abundance of fresh fruits and vegetables, and we need help to glean through that produce and make sure that we can get all the highest quality stuff to our pantry participants. So visiting our website, you'll be able to find all the community volunteer opportunities, and we would love to see you.
So how we do what we do, or why we do what we do, is really simple. Every day people wake up and they're hungry, we can help them, and we do. However, what we do and how we do it is surprisingly complicated. We call it a complete serving here, and there are three things that we need. We need people's time. We need volunteers. We're 71 staff at this organization, the Redwood Empire Food Bank, and we're 8,500 volunteers. And I'm sure Meg's numbers are equally proportional. It takes an awful lot of volunteer help, and they do everything. That's number one. Number two is we need food. Built into our very name is food bank. And so without food, we are absolutely irrelevant. And so we ask people to, when they go to the grocery store and pick up a bag of groceries, that they pick up a bag of groceries for us, for the people that are in need, and they drop it off at the Redwood Empire Food Bank. And we have bins outside, and I come every morning at 6 in the morning, and there's a tote full of food that people have come at all hours to drop off. And then finally, we need funds. that we can't pay our dedicated staff, we can't fuel our trucks, we can't refrigerate our food, we can't do anything without funds. And so we call it a complete serving. And back in the day, back in the pre-COVID day, it would be, hey, whatever one works for you best, just do any one of those. But now it's a different time and a different need, and we ask people to do all three. If they provide a complete serving, then we can serve the people.
Good way to put that. How do people sign up for your services at the food bank? David, you're not on mute, so you want to jump in there?
Okay, sure. Well, there are a variety of different things. So on our webpage, and they can just go onto their search engine and search for Redwood Empire Food Bank. There's Get Food, and there's Donate Now, and there's Volunteer Now. So if they're looking for a complete serving, if they want to participate, whether they need food, whether they want to donate food, or whether they want to donate funds, it's all there and it's all available, and they can log on and they can find a time that's available. They can start a virtual food drive. They can make a financial contribution, whatever they want to do.
And do you need to live in your service area? Because we've gotten questions about that. If you live in one place, but you want to get your service somewhere else, how does that work?
We don't check people for where they live. Generally speaking, people get food where it's most convenient. So they may work in Lake County or Mendocino County or Marin County or the city, and they may come up here, and during their workday, this is the most opportune location for them to find food. So, we would never send anybody away because their address is different. Hunger doesn't really care what your zip code is. It crosses all borders.
Yeah, Meg.
The San Francisco Marin Food Bank, we have a food locator tool, which is really helpful. You can type in your zip code. You can type in whether or not you're 60 plus or whether you are in urgent need of food. And it will tell you the closest pantry to you, and it will let you know the specific information that you need if you need to bring anything to register. All of our pop-up pantries, the ones that I mentioned that we have just stood up as direct-to-consumer, they do not have an enrollment process at this point. You just come as you are, and we provide you food there. So those don't require ID or proof of address or anything like that. The location to go to our Find Food page is sfmfoodbank.org/findfood. And that way you can find not only our food locator tool for food pantries, but also other food resources and how to get help to apply to CalFresh.
We heard early on the governor activated the National Guard to help out with food banks and distribution. Was that something that was helpful for your food banks in particular, or just the broader food bank community throughout California that were impacted by a shortage of volunteers?
For us at the San Francisco Marin Food Bank, we did not receive National Guard folks to come to help us with our operations. I know for other pantries, other food banks in the Bay Area, like Second Harvest Silicon Valley, they really benefited a lot from having a bunch of Guards people with them. We were able to get staffing from San Francisco County instead. They actually dispatched about 80 or so disaster service workers, most of whom were from the public library system. So we had them on site to help. But I know that the National Guard was super helpful for a lot of our other Bay Area colleagues.
We have National Guard here. We have Team Rubicon here. We have anybody. As I said before, it's how we do what we do. It's sort of like the hunger relief system is at once robust and at the same time fragile. And it's almost like it's constructed with dried spaghetti and baling wire. It's just volunteerism and all sorts of different components that hold this thing together. So in order for us to respond, it's really all hands on deck.
Yeah. Andy, a lot of people, experience the crush of going out and getting groceries at the grocery store and the run on things on shelves. How has that same traffic transpired at farmers markets, or has the entire business model changed? You've mentioned the boxes, of course, and the way that people are able to access the food and talk to, the farmer. But how fragile is that? And what are some things that we can do to support that business model that has to change in this environment?
Well, I'd say the demand for buying directly from producers is definitely strong, and people are continuing to come to the farmers market with their masks on and knowing they can't touch or talk to the farmers like they used to in the same way. But again, the demand for local food is very high, and I think also people want to get food on demand. So if they don't want to go to a grocery store or they don't want to wait to purchase something online where they need to wait a week or two to get a box delivered to them, people want that on-demand experience and to be able to enjoy some of the sunshine, get some vitamin D. We're definitely finding that it varies by producer type and by category. So some of our vegetable producers, it varies. Many of the vegetable producers that were selling and having products for restaurants have had to make some shifts in thinking about what they grow and harvest. We're seeing demand for eggs very high. Demand for our meat products is very high as well, particularly as people buy responsibly raised meat where the animals were raised on pasture and eating grass. What we're also though seeing is that for many of our chickers in the North Bay that they're struggling right now. So the cows are still producing milk, the goats are producing milk, and they make the cheese, and cheese is such a social product. And cheese sales are not as high, particularly among artisanal cheesemakers. So one thing we do encourage people to do is that if you are able to buy an artisan cheese product from a local Marin or Sonoma cheesemaker, we do encourage that. Some of our cheesemakers and dairymen are also donating product to food banks. So the Point Race Farmstead Cheese is donating products through the California Association of Food Banks. Strauss Family Creamery is working with the SF Marin Food Bank. So many of our dairy producers and cheesemakers want to help support our community, but they also need some support from the shopping public as well. So if you can buy some cheese, now's a good time to do it.
A lot of people, we were concerned with the closure of schools about how a lot of children receive their meals at the school sites. And a number of the school districts are still operating their food services so that children, in fact, whether they go to the school or not, I've read a lot of places aren't even checking to see if they're enrolled in those schools. But if you come to the school, you're able to get a nutritional meal that is really helpful. And are there ways for us to plug in resources where perhaps that restaurant demand's not there, but we're able to shift some of those products to the schools? We had one question come in saying that they were having a hard time sourcing the small milk cartons that are often in school lunches, and that they were really struggling to find those things. What are some alternatives that we might be able to steer people toward?
Well, I think that AIM can help provide support to help connect schools or childcare facilities that want to buy directly from farmers. So some farmers might not have enough volume to meet the needs of an entire school or childcare facility, but we could work with multiple farmers to think about ways to pool their products to help meet the needs. So that's something, it's a service AIM can provide. I also think there's other partners. So some of the groups that we work with, for instance, like the Center for Eco-Literacy in the East Bay, they do a lot of great work to support school-based programs, and many of our school district nutrition services directors are always looking for creative ways to support local producers, but it's something AIM can help to connect institutional purchasers with those who have products to sell.
Fantastic. I'll make sure that we make that connection with the person who put in that question.
That'd be great.
Mark, if I can just add to the school situation. So normally kids get out of school and they have the summer lunch, and the Redwood Empire Food Bank has an active summer lunch program where we open up at 30-something locations throughout our community. But what we're doing now, because the children should be in school, many schools are, they've actually activated summer lunch now. They call it the seamless waiver. Once a week at all of the schools, we host a food pantry. And when the parents come to pick up the food for their kids, we provide groceries. And just to give you an example, at one school here, there are 75 children who get summer lunch. On the day when the groceries are made available, 575 families show up. So if they're picking up food for the kids are hungry. And if they're picking up groceries, everybody else in the family is hungry.
I can add an additional just anecdote from West Marin on the school closures and the need to get the food to students who need it. We were able to work with the Shoreline School District and also the National Park Services to continue the mobile pantry service that we were doing out in West Marin. So every Friday, the National Park Service Rangers, they come to our facility and they pick up groceries and they drive it out to Point Reyes, where the school district staff pre-bags everything. And then they deliver it to the other school sites in Bolinas and Nicosia and Tamales. And the staff there make home deliveries to all the school families. So that includes all of the people that we usually feed with our mobile pantry, and then all of the students who would have been receiving food from the school district. It's kind of a nice story.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. We are coming up on our hour together, sharing resources and information about what you're doing, but I want to give you each a chance to say goodbye, or at least tie a bow at the end of this hour. Andy, would you like to kick it off?
Sure. So one thing I wanted to mention as well is that we run a service called the Roll and Route. It's a mobile farmers market where we operate across Marin County. So we bring the farmers market experience to senior communities and others communities that may lack access to food. So every Monday we're in Point Reyes, Tamales, and San Geronimo, and Thursday and Friday we rotate different sites along the 101 corridor from Marin City all the way up to Novato. We are looking for additional sites on Fridays. So if you want to have the farmers market experience, come to your senior center or childcare center, we can bring that to you. It's about an hour-long stop, so that's something we can follow up on as well. The other thing I will say is that throughout our farmers market experience, we're one of the few nonprofits that we've been able to keep 100% of our farmers market open. Many markets across the state and country have had some significant impact, so we're really fortunate. But with that additional work, that brings us a need for additional funding. So we have launched a farmers market assistance fund. So we are accepting donations to help support the continued operations of our farmers market, so we can ensure that we still have that lifeline for that 183 farmers and food makers, and for people that need to shop the farmers market and use CalFresh, you can make a donation online to support our organization.
Andy, we did get a live question come in about Roll and Route. Would you make a stop in Petaluma, or is there a service like that already exists in Petaluma?
So right now, our service area is specifically Marin County, but we're always open to conversations.
Okay, fantastic.
I can go next. I just wanted to conclude. I think we've had a really great conversation about the pantry programs that we operate and CalFresh and Pandemic EBT. And I want to just stress the importance of strengthening the CalFresh or SNAP program in the next COVID-19 legislative response package. It is a federal program, and we are really pushing our federal elected officials to boost the SNAP maximum benefits by 15%. So that they more adequately reach people's needs. So I would encourage you to reach out to your senators and request that they strengthen SNAP, make that a priority in the next COVID-19 legislative response package. And my other call to action is to visit our website, San Francisco Marin Food Bank, sfmfoodbank.org, to make a donation, find out how you can volunteer, or find out what food resources are available in your community.
David.
Yeah, so hunger is nothing new for our country and our communities. We are the social safety net. And the only reason that SF Marin Food Bank is able to respond as powerfully as it does, or the Redwood Empire Food Bank, is because we're holding up the net all the time. We're stretched back and we're holding it, and that net, as it expands, it takes, you need to fortify it, you need to broaden it, you need to strengthen it. A net that's sitting on the ground, when people fall, it doesn't do anybody any good. So the net has to be at the ready, borrowing from the United States Coast Guard, always ready. And so, you know, with this community support, we can tend to the needs of people, and we can be sure that nobody in our community goes hungry. So grab hold of the net and pull back. Help us get it off the ground.
Really good way to put that, David. So David Goodman, Redwood Empire Food Bank, Meg Davidson, San Francisco Marin Food Bank. Andy Najariz from the Agricultural Institute. Thank you to the three of you for joining us. We, are in the place that we're at, where we're able to get food people who need it because you've always been there. You always have, and in a time of need, and now in this crisis, and we need to be there to support you, to help you grow your services and grow your resources and grow community around you that supports you during this time, which will unfortunately probably extend for a while for people in need. And so we need to continue to pay attention to this and make sure that people get nutritional food to them through this crisis. And so thank you very much for your service, and thank you for joining us for this hour. I want to make sure that everyone who's joined us knows how to reach me. My staff has been sheltering in place since March 16th, and we've been open for business since then as well, but virtually. So you can always reach us by email, and we've shared my email, which is assemblymember.levine@assembly.ca.gov. You can also call my office anytime. Well, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, please. But we will return your calls. My staff needs to rejuvenate and take a break, but they are working around the clock on your behalf. You can call them at 707-576-2631 or 415-479-4920. And we want to hear from you. So we need to hear what's going well, and also what's missing, what's fallen through the cracks, so that we can advocate on your behalf. I'm here in my Capitol office. It's Wednesday. Monday was our first day back since March 16th, where the legislature is meeting again, voting in committees, and working on legislation primarily focused on the COVID-19 crisis, but also other issues that we care a great deal about, like wildfire preparedness, homelessness, and so many other issues that affect us every day, in addition to COVID-19, but also is at great risk because of the current crisis. So please know that we are here for you. It's not lip service. We actually need your call so that we can advocate on your behalf. So thank you for that. We will be sending out this town hall in an email for those that didn't get a chance to see all of it. It will also be available on Facebook.com. So again, thank you for our panelists, and thank you everyone. Stay home, save lives. Thanks.